What do you think have been the primary challenges in sort of bridging that gap between clinical trials and then real-world effectiveness?
So I think some of the biggest challenges with moving from clinical trials to real-world effectiveness is that clinical trials are designed to show maximal efficacy under ideal conditions. So that means we tend to have more limited patient populations with less comorbid conditions. We unfortunately tend to have more limited principal investigators who have experience and who have a track record. That's desirable because you want to have an efficient drug development program or a product development program, but it tends to limit the patient populations in those trials, as well as length of time in trials. This inherent length of trials, even when they're pretty lengthy. So all of those mean that, well, we show the advantage of a drug or a product in those conditions when you expand the patient population, expand the number and types of providers who are giving or using the product, expand the population to people who have maybe lower degrees of education, more comorbid conditions, longer lengths of time, different age groups, different ethnic composition, then different things happen in real world than happened under those conditions. One way to deal with the challenge is for us to do a better job diversifying clinical trials. So we have, and I have participated in efforts to try to increase and engage a broader array of principal investigators during the trials to make sure that the trial conditions themselves are not so restrictive that it's impossible for most people to join, making things more accessible in terms of lab tests and things like that. All of that's really helpful because it can make the trials more applicable from day one to the population. The second way is to work collaboratively with providers and now we have increasing kinds of tools to track what's happening to patients once a broader array of people are experiencing the products. And that might include data from EHRs, data from patient-reported outcomes, more data on patient demographics and characteristics, and different kinds of research designs that might include randomization and might include other controls for the differences that happen between patient populations when they're not randomized.
What challenges and opportunities do you see in implementing even more innovative technologies into traditional and standard healthcare practices?
Speaking to some of my colleagues who are practitioners now, they're facing a lot of challenges with administrative burden. I mean, they're spending a lot of their time entering data. And that's in large part because a lot of our EMRs, EHRs, all these data collection instruments were designed more for billing than they were for supporting clinical practice. And so they have limited time. They're getting distracted from actually interacting with patients. They have limited resources in terms of time and then just resources in terms of funding. And so adding other things into their practice is just not very tenable. And so it really has to be, can we add tools that decrease the burden? Can we add tools where patients can fill complete patient-reported outcomes or patient engagement measures before they come into the office or afterwards, or these micro-learning videos, things they can do in addition, and tools that enable additional kind of providers beyond just the physicians, so nurse practitioners, social work, others, to help engage the patients in some education, addressing some of the social determinants of health. So we need more tools to take the burden off of providers so that they can actually have more time to focus on patient care, and so that our data collection efforts are helpful rather than harmful.
So integrating additional disciplines into the treatment and the work with the patient instead of looking to the physician to say you need to do more.
Yeah.
Got it. There's a lot at play here. You know, you're just aligning scientific, business, education, all of these different strategies to achieve the goal of improving outcomes in healthcare. How do you balance that? I mean, how do you navigate the complexities of that?
Well, it depends what your objective is. So one objective could be increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of product development. That inherently is much better done if integrated than in pieces. So you want your discovery scientists to have feedback from patient populations and understand the context of payers and providers as they're sorting through compounds and looking at patient profiles and product profiles that are going to be desirable, so that spend more time on product profiles that are going to be more likely to be acceptable and impactful. So what do I mean by that? So one of the things that is very useful and most companies do is they have product review committees throughout product development that have scientists and commercial people and health economics and outcome research people, and sometimes feedback from payers and inclusive of patients. So as they winnow through these compounds, particularly in phase 2, where they think they have a product profile, they sort out what's going to be important to document, whether this product profile has a shot of being something value added. So for example, a long time ago, I was involved in that, and we had a benign prostatic hypertrophy product that was non-differentiated. And it was like, in the old days, you could have developed it and commercialized. But in this current kind of environment, there was no reason, because nobody's going to pay you an incremental cost for something that isn't changing the clinical path. So that kind of influencing product development is one area, and that's really critical. And another thing is actually in supporting the appropriate use of products. For example, one of the projects I worked on was with a collaboration with academics and with Pfizer on the use of the assessment and treatment of vulnerable elderly populations. So in that instance, they looked at the entire array of needs for vulnerable elderly, combed the literature, worked with experts, documented areas where people were not getting diagnosed and not getting treated. And we supported that as Pfizer. It wasn't product specific, but it was a really big public health supportive effort, because, and as more elder patients who are vulnerable got assessed and treated, sure, we would get, from a commercial perspective, some of that funding for our product. So that's on the other end of the spectrum from product development. So, and there's everything in between. But I think that combined effort is more efficient and more effective throughout most of the product life cycle.
Why do you think that more organizations, more people don't subscribe to this concept?
It's harder, okay? If I'm a researcher and I'm doing basic research, I'm trying to make this molecule get to this task. It's what I said about the practitioners. If I've got to go and listen to some patient, focus groups, et cetera, like I only have but so much time, right? So in some ways, you've got to be efficient and effective when you get people to collaborate. The other thing is you have to align people's incentives. People do, in large part, what they get incented to do. So if I get incentive from the number of molecules that I push from phase 1 to phase 2, and not necessarily their success rate from phase 2 to phase 3, then I'm not as interested in a winnowing process. Or if there's a number of products I have to have. So it's more easily said than done to change decisions about investments when people's incentives and rewards are on the line. There's also sometimes skepticism, because people say, well, look, we talked to the payers in phase 2, they told us this. By the time we got to phase 4, whatever, those payers changed careers. The new ones gave me a different set of rules. Happens with regulators too sometimes. And it's not just a payer problem. So they're like, why did I bother? Because I don't necessarily believe them. So it's easier to say than to do.
That makes sense. I was just curious, because it definitely seems ideal, certainly, but easier said than done.
And some companies really do it well, where they've got broad-based committees reviewing product development. And some companies have made concerted effort to include more patient participation, not just like casual input, into their product development processes. I don't know of one company that does everything, but there are companies that excel in one of the other aspects.
Do you feel like it's becoming more and more common that that's the case?
Yeah, I think so. Because you waste money when you develop products that nobody pays for, or when patients you thought were gonna like your product didn't like it and didn't use it. And we've seen some recent examples, I won't call them out, of where products have gone all the way through the process and get to the market, and then either payers won't pay or patients won't take it, and products get withdrawn, not for safety reasons, but for acceptability reasons.